Welcome. This is the 12th session of the PBC Morning Dawn Study Group from Padmasambhi Ling Monastery and Retreat Center in New York. Today we'll be discussing Chapter 12 of the Venerable Khenpo Rinpoche's book, The Buddhist Path, and the chapter is entitled Meditating on the True Nature of the Mind. So we'll begin with the opening prayers, and then we'll go into the discussion. Thanks so much for joining us. Samantabhadra, Vajrasattva, Pramanabhadra, Sri Singha, Dhammakara, the 25 king and subjects, So, Nun, Yang, and the 100 Tirthans and others, the lamas of the Kama and Terma lineages, to you I pray. The supreme tradition of the glorious Buddha Padmasambhava, which is the essential, extraordinary view and doctrine of the early translation school, you keep alive and spread by the light of wisdom. Lord of Dharma, great Khenpo, I pray at your lotus feet. In the palace of the Oakman Dharmadhatu, the essence of all the Buddhas of the three times, the one who shows clearly the Dharmakaya of my own mind, we pray to the Honorable Root Guru, glorious Root Teacher, precious one, dwelling on the lotus seat on the crown of my head. Hold me with your great kindness, and bestow the accomplishments of body, speech, and mind. Om Marapasanadi, Om Marapasanadi, Om Marapasanadi, Om Marapasanadi. Thanks. So we're beginning chapter 12. It's page 61 in the Buddhist Path. And so I'll give a really quick summary of this first half or so of the chapter. So the first paragraph, Khenpo Rinpoche say that in meditation practice, once the body is balanced with good posture and the speech is balanced with natural breathing, the next step is to balance the mind by keeping it in its natural state. The meditation instructions for this practice are simple. Sit with a good posture and maintain your mind in its natural balance without being disturbed by thoughts or experiences. In Dzogchen meditation, there is nothing to do aside from relaxing your awareness in its natural clarity. Experience the nature of your mind as being spacious like the sky. The third paragraph, Rinpoche say you can practice this meditation anytime. You already have this nature and don't have to change what you truly are. Recognize your natural state, and this by itself will remove what is unnatural. Maintaining your awareness in its natural state takes some effort, since our habits of not being in this state are so strong. And then the nature of mind is inexpressible and inconceivable, though it can be experienced directly by our own awareness. Don't follow your thoughts, watch your mind with mindfulness. Meditate with a relaxed mind, but don't be so relaxed that you keep postponing your practice, or you fall asleep during your session. The mind has to be mindful, clear, and gentle. So then we'll go into the first topic question.
Meditating on the nature of the mind is something you can do anytime. You do not have to go somewhere special to acquire the nature of the mind. You do not need to buy it from a store or dig it up from the earth. It's always available. During meditation, you do not need to think of any particular thoughts or make any effort to change what you are. Just simply maintain where you are and what you are without trying to do anything unusual. If you meditate by simply maintaining the natural state, then everything unnatural will be removed. You do not have to do anything except remain on your cushion. In one sense, this is something of a joke, but in another sense, it is true. You simply relax on your cushion, and that's it. And although meditation does not demand any physical activity, you do have to maintain the meditative state, and this takes some effort. Effort is not actually part of the basic ground nature, but since our obscurations and ignorance are so strong, it requires effort to make meditation natural. When meditating in this way, it is not necessary to fight with the obscurations. As your practice develops power, it will spontaneously remove the obscurations, since they are not part of the primordial nature. This practice will reveal more and more of the basic ground of primordial wisdom. The rising sun does not fight with the darkness, just as its presence makes darkness disappear. In the same way, when we meditate, the presence of the primordial nature overcomes ignorance. Page 61, third paragraph, and page 62, the first full paragraph. One of the things I was wondering about, kind of from a practical experience point of view, that sentence, you simply relax on your cushion and that's it. I was curious, like, what kind of mistakes or things that kind of came up for y'all when you first heard that? Because it seems like one of those things where it's so simple, it's hard. Or, you know, there's also lots of assumptions you could make about it. I don't know. I was curious what y'all thought.
I mean, in a way, it seems like all the instructions are all about the setting up those good conditions that we receive. Like even how this chapter comes after, you know, setting up the good conditions with like clearing the, balancing the winds and channels and having good posture, things like that. And of course, in all these teachings, and then specifically with meditation, you know, there's the shamatha for calm abiding. And I think we go on to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I mean, in a nutshell, maybe all the basic instructions we've received, you know, about meditation are exactly inseparable from. They're all about just setting up good conditions to relax and undo. I mean, and then also right here in the chapter, you know, I mean, it does take effort, but not getting too tight and, you know, many short sessions and all of that. I mean, that's just what comes to my mind first, but I'm sure other people have other thoughts as well.
I think one thing that I may have run into is just forgetting what they say, and if I remember to not be too tense or be too relaxed, then that could probably help with achieving that. But if I forget that, then I may just end up falling into those things. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, not be too intense or too relaxed. It's a really, I mean, I think it's profound at all levels of the Buddhist teaching. Even Buddha Shakyamuni taught that in the more foundational teachings, and it's often quoted, and it's so essential because it can apply, I think, at all levels. But all that, I mean, so it's about how do we bring balance. It's with the metaphor of a string being taut or loose. There has to be an effort to make it just right so that it functions as it can. Like it definitely, like it says here in this quote, we have to apply effort. The nature of the mind itself doesn't have to be changed or built or made better, but our habit is to not see it. Our habit is to totally be so contrived and tense and all these different dynamic, creative ways of getting cocooned in our own little grasping web. And so all this, like being too tight or too loose, or bringing out good positive conditions of body and speech and even mind. I think this is really, I mean, and we've talked about it quite a bit, about creating positive habits, creating good, healthy, uplifting circumstances, really reducing or eliminating the negative, disturbing, reactive situations internally and externally. And all that is totally on the relative level. Like, how do we do good and avoid harm and create a situation so then that on the absolute level, that open, relaxed, always present, unchanging, unstained awareness can be seen. It's like the sky You don't have to make the sky be open and spacious, but in order to see that, if your window is dirty, you have to clean the window. Then the sky can be as open and spacious as it wants, but if it's a dirty window, then it doesn't really matter. It won't really help just to hear, oh, it's spacious. So I think it's practical, and not just practical, but essential, bringing the relative and the absolute, or the form and formless aspects of ourselves and the teachings together in a natural balance union, like they're taught, the Buddha and all these great masters.
I think a related point is just that at least part of bringing that kind of balance is, or at least I think one of the keys is just mindfulness. You know, and they talk about that in the chapter that, like, how can we know whether we're too tight or too loose? And that's really mindfulness, being, and you know, maybe sometimes they say it in different words like conscientiousness or alertness, but in general, it's that sense of being, like, or they do talk about it as a watcher in this chapter. So just like that, we have to be a little bit aware of what's going on, you know, and that's really where we, you know, can be not too close watching, you know, because then that's too tight, you know, but also not too loose and not watching enough, you know, getting dull. So for myself anyway, I think that mindfulness is like part of the key to finding that balance.
Yeah.
Well, I find when I get busy, even if I sit down, it's hard to relax. Like if my life is busy, really busy, then I can't. It would be very difficult for me to do this.
So then when that happens, like, what do you find helpful to relax?
Sometimes. It's just, that's the way life is, you know.
Yeah.
But going outdoors helps, or sometimes taking a walk, if I have time for a walk.
Yeah.
You know, that helps.
I think maybe too, like sometimes shamatha meditation is good, I think. For me, I find it helpful, like at the beginning of practice. If you're just doing all kinds of activities, and I mean, it depends on where you're coming from as a practitioner and your level of understanding too, I guess. But for me personally, I find it helpful if I have a lot of activity, like mental activity or physical movement, then when I sit down, then a little bit of shamatha meditation can be really helpful. And also sometimes reflecting on those, like they say at every meditation session, those 4 thoughts that reverse the mind from samsara, just to kind of just like clear some space and remember why I'm even sitting or practicing formally, you know, and then more, even though it's not like something, I mean, like what they're saying here, all you have to do is sit on your cushion and stay there, you know. But like everybody seems to be saying too, like once the conditions come together, then they're spontaneously that the meditation or the awareness seems like it would be there.
I mean, always with the path it's taught the union of accumulating merit and accumulating wisdom. And accumulating merit is developing positive, you could say developing positive concepts. It is like developing conceptual merit and then realizing non-conceptual wisdom. Like there's literally nothing we can do to make non-conceptual wisdom more non-conceptual. It's open. You can't make it more open. It's infinitely open. But then to see that, then it's always taught this accumulating merit, accumulating conceptual merit, generating positive qualities. That's always, I mean, it's just to reiterate all these things we've been going over so many times. It's the earlier chapters talk about refuge and bodhicitta, connecting to our motivation, bringing all beings to mind, seeing samsara and wanting to turn away from it, really connecting genuinely with our teacher and with the lineage and cultivating that devotion. Like all that in a fabricated sense is totally contrived, pretending, unnatural, deluded when it's in the grasping mind. But if we're not in pure non-grasping awareness already, then we have to grasp. We have to bring up devotion and compassion and love and attentiveness and hold an object so we don't run around everywhere. Like, we have to grasp. And there's a really big difference. We talked about this before, but positive grasping and negative grasping. Positive accumulation of merit versus negative dispersal of all the good things, like just totally wasting our time and wasting our life. We have to positively build something, and there's just no way around it. And it seems like the teachings are really clear about that. There's no way around, what is it, you fake it till you make it? Contrive until it's natural. There's so many teachings really say that.
So I guess a little. How would you relate that back to here then? When we're talking about you have to build these positive qualities, and then we're also we have practices like this where it's sit on the cushion. That's it. I mean, of course, we also have the posture and all of these supports that we have there. But how do we relate those two?
Maybe that's part of like the 3 frames of practice. When we have a formal practice session, right, we have those 3 frames, which are the first one is really setting up those conditions, and just in a really simple way of framing that. There's, like Andrew mentioned, like the reflecting on the 4 thoughts that turn the mind like towards the Dharma and towards our practice, and ignites our bodhicitta and our inspiration and our aspiration, widens our view and softens our heart and opens our minds, and along with that, recalling and bringing into presence, feeling the presence of the Buddha, all the bodhisattvas, Guru Rinpoche, all the lineage masters, really connecting with the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, taking really reaffirming, our closeness feeling and our dedication and our joy, and commitment to like following the path, to fruition, and for the benefit of all beings, and generating bodhicitta. All these things, they are part of that process of setting up these positive kind of conditions. And then these other parts, have being in a nice space, as a part of nurturing that, balancing our body and our speech, clearing the winds, doing something, prior that helps us calm our body, speech, and mind a little. So clearing the winds, having a good posture, maybe like Andrew mentioned, doing a little with our mind. We've contemplated these other things, but then maybe doing a little shamatha or something. And then the middle section would then be, the main practice, which in this sense is just just relaxing that. Just letting go, like we've set up all these beautiful conditions, and put our concentration towards these like positive qualities and things, but then we're going to just within that relax, follow the instructions that are here. And then the 3rd frame is once we've fulfilled that intention of our main practice, then dedicating that merit for all beings and connecting with our aspirations more. So like just the way those 3 frames kind of set that up. And of course we could get more and more elaborate in different kinds of practice, but that's it. And then maybe it's a good way to segue into the second point, which kind of goes over that, how to build up our practice too. Because if maybe we're just beginning and we're trying to like just completely relax into the Dzogchen pure nature for like an hour straight, it's kind of not a practical.
Yeah.
So like, but just like little by little. So even in that main practice, maybe we go on to that and we can talk more or something.
Okay, yeah, so I'll do this, sure. Do this quick, very short summary, and then we'll read that. So in this second part of this chapter, Rinpoche say that, and go over this story about how to find a good balance in one's practice, being not too tight or too loose, just like an instrument that is properly tuned without being too tight or loose. And they give the example of this monastic who used to be a mandolin player and kind of was having difficulty with the practice, either too tense or too relaxed, and then Buddha gave him that instruction, don't be too tight and don't be too loose, and understood, and then could apply, find balance more easily. Then finally Rinpoche say, with this proper balance, your practice will go very well. As a beginner, it's best to do short sessions many times and gradually extend the length of the sessions as your practice becomes more stable. Since Buddhist meditation is always based on love and compassion for all beings, always spend some time dedicating the merit at the conclusion of your session, which actually greatly multiplies the merit of your practice. So then we'll read the second topic.
Alright, I'll read that. This is from page 63, the last paragraph. When you meditate with the proper balance, you can reach enlightenment and discover the primordial nature. As a beginner, it is best to practice for many short periods and gradually extend the sessions to longer and longer periods of time. Meditate for as long as you have time, and when you finish, dedicate the merit for the benefit of all sentient beings. Buddhist meditation is always based on love for all beings, so you should conclude your practice with thoughts of compassion and loving kindness. When you dedicate the merit to others, it does not mean that you lose that merit. Actually, it multiplies your merit. So it is good to always complete your meditation session by spending a few minutes dedicating the merit for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Can I add something to kind of what I was talking about before we went to that? But just as far as relating back to that last question too, but in that main practice, that middle section of our practice session, kind of how it relates to this drop by drop, little sessions.
Yeah.
So even if, say, we have a whole hour to practice, we can spend some time in the first part with, refuge, bodhicitta, and etc. But then in that main section, where we're focusing on just meditating, on the nature of mind, just connecting with that, we can still, even within that, have little sessions where we say, okay, I'm going to totally relax for a minute or something, and then we can then maybe spend another few minutes actually then again connecting with our bodhicitta or reciting a mantra or whatever else, and as something that's, again, it's kind of, instead of just getting distracted or sleepy or dull, or something that helps kind of bring more clarity to and reaffirming what we're doing, and then re-inspiring and having, stabilizing our concentration, and then again, then we can relax for another. I mean, that's just another thing I know I find helpful, like if, depending on different things, just kind of even within that main session, we can have these little sessions where we're totally relaxing, and then come back, with something that helps to kind of re-strengthen that, and then relax, and then for whatever amount we're kind of committed to do, and then dedicate the merit. And I think I know for myself too, something that is helpful too is to really have, whenever we're going to have our meditation session, definitely day to day, that's really good, and having that continuum as a regular thing, day to day. So kind of, for like myself, setting up a time that I can most likely always do, and like, while it's so nice to practice, there's also other aspects to our practice and our life and our activities and things, so like, kind of like, so just at least, for ourselves to know what can we always know we can do, and have that joy of something to look forward to, and then it doesn't become a big burden if other things come up, and we can't do our session for a really long time, but just know, every morning, I can at least do whatever, 15-minute meditation, and if we can do more, great, or whatever. It doesn't, I'm just using that number as an example, but like I find that helpful too. So within the session itself, we can have those periods of just trying, that mindful relaxing, and then re-strengthen that and relax, but then also on our day-to-day, kind of making sure we follow through, and give ourselves and, and with our bodhicitta, everyone, like that respect of like keeping our practice time and having it be something that we can practically do. Like, this seems like kind of maybe a simple thing, but I don't know. I find that easily a challenge. But.
I think related to that really pithy point of the having short sessions many times, that's really applicable in post-meditation practice.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying.
Because it's like, for one day, you go, okay, anytime I hear a doorbell today, I'll look to my mind. Anytime I pet my doggy, I'll look at my mind. And then next day, okay, anytime I have to turn left when I'm driving, I'll look to my mind. Anytime I hear the word hello, I'll look to my mind. And then keep changing up these little reminders. And then it kind of stays fresh. But in this same way, it becomes a short meditation session.
Yeah.
Look to the mind, just do it for a few seconds, and then we get in the habit of just looking to the mind. And then a day change, then pick another reminder in the morning. Anytime I see the red square, or whatever, look at a stop sign, see someone with a blonde hair. Like, there's all kinds of little things. Then look to the mind, look to the mind. It becomes like little
That's really good.
ways of having short sessions many times, which is all about like increasing the stability. Like the big thing with mindfulness is just to remember to imply the instruction. What is the instruction? Am I applying it? And this is kind of really practical in post-meditation when we're out and about, like we're almost always doing all the time because it's so busy now. But I find that that's helpful.
And that's really good too, because it's also kind of helps break down that separation we might make between practice and life. Really blending that meditation and post-meditation kind of.
Yeah, for the sake of telemarketers, I used to tell myself anytime I hear the phone ring, look to the nature of mind, so I'm not angry when I pick up the phone and it's someone wanting to sell me something. Makes it easier on them.
Can I ask a quick question? I just was wondering, this is actually from the kind of more the first part of the chapter, but on page 61, it's the second paragraph, and it's just kind of right in the middle of the paragraph, there's this line that says, inner awareness is different than external awareness. It is called clear light emptiness. And I just wasn't sure what the difference was between inner awareness and external awareness, or primarily what is external awareness, because they say what inner awareness is.
Yeah, here I think they're really talking, it's specific to this paragraph, because right before that they say, without analyzing one's experiences or being disturbed by thoughts. And then they go to make this distinction between inner awareness and external awareness. So here I think they're really talking about external awareness, like our usual way of grasping at appearances, following after experiences, pushing away from things, leading, kind of having a big narrative in our minds and kind of grasping after that narrative or getting upset or whatever. So that is being external awareness, as opposed to this internal awareness, which is what they're talking about in the chapter, recognizing how our mind is before it grabs onto anything. So that non-grasping awareness.
Or it seems like it on a similar note too is external awareness, like any awareness of any object. Like keeping the mind on any object at all, even meditation or anything, like, so that would be external from the sense of there's a subject and how I'm thinking an object or taking an object of perception as the focus instead of, I guess, not.
So you could say like external awareness is dualistic awareness and internal awareness is non-dualistic? Could you say it that way?
It's really specific to how they're talking about it here. I think they're talking about it really generally. Because it doesn't mean anytime you're aware of an object, you're dualistic. Because the Buddha is aware of so many objects. Khyentse Rinpoche are aware of so many objects. The thing is if you first are aware of your internal awareness or your own nature of mind, and while abiding in that nature of mind, allow its natural knowing capacity to clearly arise as objects, as thoughts, as wisdom awareness, then there's not a problem. There's not a division there, because we're in a state of awareness that doesn't create that sense of a contracted me versus other things, so that separation's not there. So then it's called wisdom display. And that's related to what you'd brought up before, the awareness. There's a primordial nature. This chapter's on the primordial nature, the true nature. And then there's a different thing about actually being aware of that true nature. So the primordial nature itself, whether it's the nature of myself, yourself, or an object, a phenomena, that's called in Buddhism Dharmadhatu. And then the awareness of that nature, which we're trying to recognize and cultivate in this chapter, is called Dharmakaya. So the awareness of the nature and the nature itself, there is this slight distinction there. And then the awareness of objects, this Dharmadhatu, is more the pure objects. But pure objects, like the nature of them is pure, is Dharmadhatu. And what's aware of that is pure subjectivity, pure awareness, Dharmakaya.
Or Rigpa.
Or Rigpa.
That's one of the definitions.
So there's an apparent polarity of subject-object, but it's pure subject and pure object as a Buddha experiences their awareness, experiencing its arising clarity display. So you don't have this samsaric tension there. But
thank you, that's helpful.
I think another point with this is there's so many polarities here, and often in the Dzogchen teachings we get into these, and it's kind of, it can be confusing. It definitely has for me. Like we have to make effort, but the true nature is effortlessly accomplished. It's, I mean, just all these kind of things about how grasping and non-grasping, contriving and not contriving. And a lot of times in the Dzogchen teachings, they do make this distinction, like there's an awareness that doesn't grasp, and there's awareness that grasps. Or they say we need to take effort to see our nature, but once we see our nature, it's called a natural effortlessness. That the nature itself has a natural energy that continues. And so it doesn't require a constrained grasping effort, but a natural joyful effort arises, because that's the nature of the mind. Similarly with shamatha, oftentimes we might think, well, maybe we do shamatha first, and then once we get beyond that, we'll just abide in the nature all the time. But that abiding, the actual sustaining or abiding in the nature is shamatha. It's called the union of shamatha and vipassana, or just it's exactly the title of this chapter. How do we continually meditate on the nature of mind? It's non-dual shamatha, or natural, effortless shamatha. But so there's a lot of these polarities, and almost all of them you can say grasping, fill in the blank, or non-grasping, fill in the blank. Grasping effort, non-grasping effort. Grasping joy, non-grasping joy. I mean, it's just really, and I found that for myself, it's clarified some points that were otherwise would be really confusing. Grasping mind, non-grasping mind. I thought another quick point, this chapter is meditating on the nature of mind. And just to point out that there's a lot of the other chapters, like the primordial nature, or emptiness, or union of emptiness and compassion, that these are really talking about the view. What is the nature of mind? Whereas this chapter in particular is talking about how to sustain the recognition of the nature of mind. And it's very clear that in Buddhist teachings, and as Khenpo Rinpoche has taught, the view always comes first. We have to see where we're going before we take steps to go there. We have to recognize our nature before we can sustain that recognition. Like that's why study is so important before we meditate. Or that's why we have to see what is the nature before we can sustain that recognition. This tawa, the view, is always, and so many masters have emphasized that point. And so we're kind of jumping into this chapter as if we're just abiding somehow. And we haven't really said what we're abiding in, but these other chapters have really gone over that.
Well, this relates to what Laya said earlier about just the importance of setting up our practice, and that, that in the context of the three frames, I mean, you do, it's not like all you do is just sit on the cushion and do nothing. I mean, you really do a lot of these setting up the view and get, connecting with the meaning of the practice and establishing the proper conditions, and then this chapter, we apply the instructions of this chapter, or just kind of tying that together.
Right. And the way that all fits with just the whole three wheel, reading, listening to the teachings, and then contemplating them, really thinking, and then there's this part meditating, like how that relates to the the same kind of idea of the view. And then the practice that goes with that view. Because it seems like these chapters we just started previously, now this section of the book and the next two chapters are definitely more about actually practicing, with that view. Things that
kind of tying into the view, there was one, kind of in the terms that go with the study sheet, one of the, under primordial nature, the quote is, Buddha nature transcends the four extremes of existence, non-existence, both, and neither. And I was hoping anyone could kind of elaborate more on that, because I think, existence, non-existence has a level of clarity to it, but then the both, the neither, I thought maybe that'd be useful to go over.
could be useful, though we should also keep in mind our time in getting into a big
You
discussion.
should just say beyond all extremes, any extreme whatsoever, and all those are based on the notion of entity, that something's really there.
Mm-hmm.
So not having anything substantial as actually existent there, aside from the nature, aside from that experience of that nature itself, or the nature displayed.
It's the quintessential definition of Majolica middle way teachings. Beyond these four extremes, the Quattrolemma, it's the Majolica View, which is said to be exactly identical to the Dzogchen view when you apply it in practice. That any position you take assumes that you're taking a position and it's omitting other positions. So it's partial.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying it's this way, and by definition, it's not that way. So it's saying, Majolica is saying, it's not this way, that's a partial. It's not only that way, because that's partial, it leaves out this part. It's not both, because they're mutually exclusive. They can't both be there without a contradiction. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth, neither. There's no alternative. There's no conceptual alternative that's possible. And this is literally logic. This logically talking about all logical possibilities. Majolica is used to exhaust all logical possibilities or concepts. So we can go beyond conceptual grasping mind and recognize non-conceptual wisdom. So it's technically saying of all logical possibilities, you investigate each of those four positions, this, not this, both, neither, and you can see that each produces an internal contradiction. So logically it's not a feasible position at all, and you're only left to have to directly realize what it is that's frustrated, because there's no position that works, because they all break apart when you look at them closely enough, and which is what Majolica does so well. So look at how any conceptual position includes an inherent logical contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go beyond a conceptual position to realize a non-conceptual awareness.
I thought one thing I just thought to just mention that I think is really important on this point too, and what Lada said, and the division between meditation and not meditation, is that we all spend oftentimes a lot of time reading and looking at computers and doing like a lot of heavy conceptual work. So it's nice too to apply these instructions, like when we're studying Majolica or the teachings or looking at the computer. Just like when our mind gets tired, which it does from doing all that stuff all the time, and just like we're reading or studying, then just taking a step back and trying to do that, recognize the nature within that, and just let it go, just relax. For just short periods, like throughout the day. And I think that, I don't know, I just wanted to say that because I know we spend so much time doing all these heavy-duty conceptual work,
And Rinpoches often say, don't let it hover in the brain, it has to sink in the heart. And just pausing and just really connecting to the meaning is exactly that process. And that's a profound fifth instruction with studying and integrating our lives into the practice. And I just wanted to say real quickly, that final point about dedicating the merit, which is almost an additional point to this chapter, that they said that's one of the extraordinary teachings of the Buddha, that in the end we reaffirm our bodhicitta motivation and totally give away any of the merit or benefit that comes about from our practice. And oftentimes there's the idea in worldly view, where you work so hard to gather this thing, then it's kind of foolish to just give it away, because you're left with nothing. But in this view, connecting to this true nature, it only glorifies the true nature. It only opens our abilities and our wisdom and our loving heart more and more. The more we're constantly just put all this work and energy into getting this good thing and just totally give it away. And it just multiplies. It's a beautiful, extraordinary teaching in Buddha Shakyamuni. Give it away to all beings. And it becomes greater. It's the profound beauty of transcendental generosity. Recognizing the nature and giving away, aspiring. It's like this seamless interdependence of this seamless union of the absolute and the relative. It's beautiful in that statement.
I didn't understand the logic of why it multiplies.
Because it's no longer within a fixed frame of reference. We drop all the frame of reference. And once we drop all frame of reference, where are we? We're not in any singular position. We're everything. It's everything, limitless. We totally just sink into open, infinite primordial awareness. And from there, what's its expression? Its natural expression is infinite, all-inclusive love and compassion that sensitively engages with and responds to and affirms other beings. All arising phenomena. So that's how it becomes infinite. I mean, not just multiplying, it becomes infinite. We're no longer one person with one little bag of Santa Claus goodies giving out. It's infinite. Maybe Santa Claus has some abilities too.
Swasti
Sayantu, Chosum Sasum Chitu Bemaju, Nye Sodeb Tuje Tujinji, Kitchen Baden Sherab Jubeku, Nujudin Rose Zantachin Sho, Om Swasti, Chuku Nandalum Kuchen Resi, Chuku Bajun Yabyum Tujetu, Vela Bazang Jajo Yansika, Tendor Bende Dundu Nujasho. Kankari Rawe Gowe Shinkamsu, Pendantirwa Malu Juweni, Chenezi Wan Tenzin Japsuhi, Shape Kaji Badu Tenjuji. Om Swasti, Sewang Rizin Beme Jenlamji, Dungi Dube Laksan Nodenla, Shedung Golo Sumji Bajote, Sanchen Nandan Jole Namja Sho. By this merit may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. The precious bodhicitta, and those without it, may it be generated. And those who have it, may it never diminish, but always continue increasing.